about you today. I thought it was time, as we were coming to the end of this year, 2025, that I said a big hello to all the subscribers of my channel. I've met very few of them. So thank you to all the unknown and unseen subscribers who have taken the time to subscribe and hopefully like the videos that are put onto the channel. The videos that are put onto the channel are to support, as many of you know, indie authors, self-published authors, and occasionally authors who've gone down the traditional route of going to a publisher. But what I really wanted to talk about today, or very, very briefly, is to say a big thank you also to all the indie authors who have been on my channel, chatting with me, telling me about their stories, about their lives, about how they came to write their stories, their struggles, their triumphs, the joys, and the biggest joy of all is now being a published author. In fact, a friend of mine said to me, I don't really feel as though I'm an author. And I was a little bit taken aback because she's written 6 books. And I said, what do you mean that you don't feel that you are an author? You've written 6 books. She said, yes, but there's something that's not quite there. It's missing. And I had to just gently remind her that you have written 6 books. The time and energy and effort, the joy and the pleasure that you have brought to your readers makes you an author. So just absorb that. And I thank you for being an author and producing 6 books, 6 very wonderful books. I haven't yet interviewed her, but I'm about to interview her. And I will remind her again about the fact that she said she wasn't an author. But in the meantime, I have put on approximately 29 to 30 videos or podcasts of the many authors. And I'd like to actually acknowledge each and every single one of them. So this may take a little bit more than, say, 10 or 15 minutes. My very, very first author that I interviewed was R.K.J. Adams. And she was an educator but has now retired. And her first book Wasn't Me, Miss. And she talked about what it was for her as a child, her introduction to school, her introduction to education. And eventually she became a headmistress for many, many years. And she's now actually a very successful author. And I must remember that she's also a very good photographer. And I'm green with envy because she manages to capture the Northern Lights every time that they appear in the Highlands of Scotland. So R.K.J. Adams is one of my authors. Another one who wrote a wonderful story, Be Proud to Be Blue, talking about what it is for children to be confident and to be proud to be themselves, written by the author Diane Hull. So Diane has already written many, many other books. Another lovely author that I interviewed was Kate Patton, who wrote a book called Say Cheese, Marcus and the Milk Snatcher, as well as A Donkey Named Dave. 3 children's books, 3 very different stories, full of imagination, wonderful illustrations. And I'm sure she's continuing to write and produce more books, but I haven't quite caught up with her, but I will do in time to come. So the genres I have covered have been many and varied. Children's books, books from educators. A book that I found very unusual was by Carol Elizabeth Marshall. Her first book was entitled Creativity Sparked Resilience. And she combined poetry with painting. And it was her poetry that sparked her amazing paintings. I hope you can see the front cover. I do hope you get a chance to actually buy her book, which is on Amazon, or maybe you already have. And if you have, what I'd love for each and every one of you to do is when you have listened to the videos, which I hope you're going to listen to them again, of every single author, that you will comment about their story, about their work. And if you've actually read their book, please drop a comment into the channel. That would be so wonderful. Because the more people who actually subscribe to the channel, the more they share the fact that this channel is for indie authors, what I would call the unheard voices, the more the authors get to be known. And let's remember, it's not always easy to come on to a video and be interviewed by somebody. A lot of people are very shy of speaking in public. But by doing this particular channel, my aim is really to help authors, besides their writing, to find their voice. I think it's very important that they have the confidence to speak about who they are, what they are, and what they write. Let's move on to another author that I really love. Now, he was very unusual. He is very unusual. Richard Thomas, he produced the most magnificent photographic books. The first one was called Memories from the End of the Line, Transforming a Picture into a Story. And his photography took him all over every single underground line on London Transport. He talked about the stations, he talked about the artwork he found in the stations, he talked about stepping out of the stations and into the towns and villages of every underground station, the people he met, the things that he learned about the local history. Truly an amazing, amazing piece of work. I think he spent many, many years collating all the photographs and eventually he put it into a book. His second book is called Return to the End of the Line, London by National Rail. I have a feeling at the moment he is taking a break from writing books and concentrating on other things. One of my lovely stories that I curled up in front of my fireplace one day, as you can see, I have a fireplace here, is by author Matthew Bird, The Jackfruit Treasure Chap. This is what I call a rumbustious pirate story. Matthew takes us to, I think it is the 17th century or 18th century, out in the Far East, and tells the story of his family looking for a treasure and all the things that befall them and all the people that double-cross them and family intrigue. A wonderful story. Definitely, if you love pirate stories, Matthew Bird, Jackfruit Treasure Trap is the one for you. Let's go on to something else. The choreography of Ghosts. Now, it's no good me turning the book around because you're going to see it back to front, but the choreography of Ghosts is by another new author, Andrew Mosley. And I love the title. I'm not going to say too much about the book. The title, though, is The Choreography of Ghosts. Now, what does that actually conjure up for you? To me, it was shadows of people who are ghost-like and who literally cross our paths. Sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. And I think that is somewhere around the title of the story, how people drop in on our lives as shadows or as ghosts, leave an imprint and move on. And sometimes we're not even aware that they've left that imprint. Wonderful thought. But the story itself is very deep and very meaningful. Another one, Paul Underwood. Now, I think many of you have heard of Paul. He has just written a new book called 90 Tiny Windows. Actually, the first book he wrote was called A Storm Incoming. Another, I call it a teen fantasy by Paul Underwood. When a true mystery opens, this book was full of the most creative and imaginative characters that you can imagine. If you love teen fantasy and if you love to be transported into other worlds, Paul's book is for you. His last book, called 90 Tiny Windows, is remarkable for its creativity. He has taken a thought and he has written short story, maybe no more than half a page, with the most exquisite illustrations. And some of them are very deep, some are morbid, some are fantastical, some are sparkling. But every window opens up into a part of life that you've yet to be drawn into. 90 Tiny Windows by Paul Underwood. Another one of my favorite books, and this is paranormal. It's called The Life Machine by Dave Pitt. So Dave has written a trilogy of this particular story, and I highly recommend this. If you love investigative stories, if you love detective stories, if you have an intrigue into the paranormal, Dave Pitt is the author for you. He will really turn your mind quite seriously. So last week, I was at the Glasgow Fair under the boardwalk, and I met an author that I had interviewed last year. Her name is Deborah Murphy. And she wrote an enchanting story called Beatrix, the Time-Traveling Collie. Collies, I love collies. I don't know how many of you love collies. I just adore them. They are one of the most beautiful, creative, inquisitive, highly intelligent dogs around. And Beatrix is a very unusual dog. She has the ability to travel and safe people in different times, in different time zones. It's worthwhile actually reading the story and the follow-ups that Deborah Murphy has actually written. I can't go into too many details about every single author because there's so many of them, but the names, if you just Amazon the names, you will find them and they will come up, and you can read short synopsis of their stories and get an idea and a feeling for what the stories are about. Another author that wrote an unusual topic, Gaynor Cherian. She talks about an adoptee's journey, what it is like to be adopted, what it is like to be with the adopted parents who may not be the most loving in the world. What effect does it have upon you as a child? And what effect does it have upon you as you grow older and you find your original birth parents? She writes the whole book in the form of letters, wonderfully written, simple in style, but really conveys her message of what it was like to be an adoptee and on the journey of finding her birth mother. Another story, but from a different angle, of adoption is by Nick Finney. His story is called The Bumps Ahead, the tale of a 5-year pregnancy when he and his wife wanted to adopt a child and what it was like to go through the whole adoption process. It's a raw story, it's heartfelt, it is no holds barred on the way he feels about things. And it's wonderful that when he and his wife finally adopt their first child, the love that emanated for this little child. A wonderful story. Quite tearful. I actually was very tearful when I read the story. So let's move on to a few other authors I've interviewed. Becky Davis. Her book is called Ingenious Creatures and Secrets of Stumpy Hollow. This is not quite a fairy tale, but it is fantasy. Becky is a photographer, and so she looks at the written word from a different perspective to maybe how others look at the written word. And I highly recommend the story. I think Becky has now written another one, or is in the process of writing another story. So again, available on Amazon. And just a little bit of what it says. There's something Ramona knows that Ned doesn't. A secret far greater than any other child has experienced. A secret that could lead to danger. When Ned finds out, his whole world changes, and he realizes that this is just the start of an adventure, one that he cannot necessarily control. There's a lot of mystery going on there. So I've also interviewed authors who are more, I would say, not quite self-help, but give you tips on ways of helping you find the magic within yourself. And magic, as we know, is very transformative. So J.E. Greetham wrote her first book, The Alchemist Within. Through self-discovery and transformation, create a life you love. It's a wonderful book. It has 2 books with it. You have the main book, and you have a journal that she supplies with the main book. So you can write down your own thoughts as you read through the book, and there are exercises and ideas about how to I've forgotten the word, how to grab the magic within you. Do you feel stuck, restless, unhappy, constrained by your situation or emotions, just plain lost or out of control? This empowering 4-part journey reconnects you with you, your dreams, ambitions, and aspirations. Tap into your alchemist within, using exercises and journaling to rediscover your authentic self and reconnect with the magic and miracles of the universe. Spark change with simple processes and tools, and learn how to tune into your intuitions and inspirations for guidance. Discover the language of the universe and work with its flow to guide your journey as you create a life you love. Let the magic begin. A completely different story altogether by first-time author Dr. Rona Morrison, a forensic psychiatrist. She wrote a book, I Don't Talk to Dead Bodies: Curious Encounters of a Forensic Psychiatrist. It's an incredible read, compelling and intimate, This brave and honest account of life as a forensic psychiatrist shines a light onto society's assumptions about living with mental illness. I want to just read a little bit from the back because Rona has had huge success with this book. It's led her to places that she'd never expected. Or in fact, I have a feeling she planned where she wanted to go, and this book has allowed her to do that. She wanted to go on a cruise and talk about her book. She wanted to travel to Japan and talk about her book, and that's exactly what she's done. Everything that she's wanted to do, she's done, and she's hugely successful with this book. Join Dr. Rona Morrison on an often funny and at times downright bizarre, thought-provoking and eye-opening roller coaster ride to some of the most curious encounters of her career as a leading forensic psychiatrist. Delve into the minds of real people whose actions may shock and stun you, but whose stories have the power to challenge your assumptions and the stigma that surrounds mental illness. I think we do have a lot of assumptions about people who have mental illness. It is a topic that I find myself falling into sometimes. I have been up in the Highlands of Scotland for my 5th year now, and I live in quite a remote part of the countryside. And there are times when the silence around me is not good for my mental health. I do sometimes feel like I'm going to scream. And so what do? That's another story. So I'm coming to the end of some of the stories that I've actually been interviewing. One of the other authors, this is a really remarkable book. It took Carolyn Parry, an award-winning author and coach, a very long time to write. Her book is called Change Your Story. Escape from a job you hate and create a career you love on purpose. This book is about, I think it's 6 people, real-life people, who she actually listened to their story. They told that story in their own word. And she took that story and developed it into ways in which you can actually help yourself transform your career. If you're feeling stuck, if you hate it, if you think you're never going to get anywhere with what you're doing, Carolyn's book is a must read. It really is, because it gives you very practical guidelines and information on how to move forward. Are you feeling lost or stuck in a career rut and uninspired by your work? Is your job meaningless, unfulfilling, and eroding your soul? If so, then you need this book, Change Your Story. It's packed with inspiring stories, actionable exercises, and practical psychology, neuroscience-informed resources. This engaging and research-proven step-by-step career management guide and toolkit will give you the light bulb moments you need so you can. So, a few more books, and we're coming to the end. A book that was written by, or is written by, another award-winning photographer and filmmaker called Adrian Fisk. His book is entitled Until the Last Oak Falls. And this is not a storybook as such. It's not a storybook in words. It's a story in photography, in photos. Many, many years ago, when the Newbury bypass was being built, there was a huge, huge protest against the Newbury forest being actually, I call it, slaughtered of oak trees. The government were intent on allowing the bypass to go through the new forest. I mean, is it through the New Forest? And what was remarkable, it was such an emotive time that hundreds of young people went into the forest, lived in the trees, tied themselves to the trees so that the trees would not be cut down. And what Adrian did is he went and he actually lived in the trees for 6 months and took photographs of everything that took place during that period of time. And it was a warning which people were not listening to. And everything they said at the time was going to happen has actually happened. It is about climate change, but it's about more than just climate change. Let me see if I can just find you a little something. Let me just read you a little bit. The introduction is by somebody called Joy Griffiths. It was a sweet time and a damaging time. It was a chaotic, sideways, and injurious time. Tender and daft, devoted and serious, and in all weathers, effervescently playful. The soundtrack to the road protests was fiddles, tin whistles, and chainsaws. When Reclaim the Streets exploded onto Camden High Street with a staged car crash rapidly followed by people up tripods, it used rave music to protest loudly against the Autogeddon of a car-centric world. The movement was a party animal, as these photographs illustrate the buzzy atmosphere of face painting and detournement, fire breathers, and the gigantic stilt-walking Marie Antoinettes, under whose voluminous skirts the angle grinders were at work, digging up the M41 in London to plant trees. Under the playful exterior was a deadly serious work in progress, reclaiming public space from the de facto privatization of private cars with sofas for the fast lane. Until the Last Oak Falls is a book that probably will open your mind and open your thoughts about the future of our world. It is available, I think, on Amazon, and if it is not, it is available from Adrian Fisk's website. If you just go onto the website and just type in Adrian Fisk, Fisk, Until the Last Oak Falls, his website will come up and you will be able to obtain this book. It's another highly recommended book that I would suggest you get hold of. And my very last book for now is, it's a book I actually don't have with me because it belonged to a friend, but it was by an author called Nicholas Baxter, an American author, whom I met at a book fair last year in a place called Merkel. And he had come over to the fair. I couldn't believe it. It was this tiny little fair in a community hall in up towards Thurso. And Nicholas Baxter had written this book about Cassie Moore, the cat. I'm sorry, I feel very embarrassed I don't have his book with me, having put him out. But I will. There is a video of him on my YouTube channel. Gideon Hodge. He comes under the name of Gideon Hodge. That's the book he wrote. So look out for Gideon Hodge and hear all about this most amazing cat that he's written about. So those are all the various authors I've read. I have listened to, I have interviewed the authors of a variety of genres. My next interviewee is going to be a very different type of story altogether. And I'm going to keep it a secret for now. I think you will really enjoy hearing about the next author's work. Thank you so much for joining. I thought this would be a short video. It came out to be much longer. But I do hope you will get a sense of the variety of authors that are actually on this YouTube channel, each telling a different story, a different genre, a different aspect of the way they see their life and the way they see the world. So please do join me at Let's Chat About You today. Please do like, subscribe, share, and comment. It is something that I really ardently ask you to become a part of because it helps all those authors, their unheard voices, their unheard stories, and it encourages more people to put pen to paper to write their story. Some of them may never be published, but it is just the act of writing a story, telling a story that is so cathartic for one. It just transforms one from the inside out. So thank you for listening to this video. Thank you for being a part of it. And do join me on my next Let's Chat About You today, coming up very soon in about 1 week's time. And by the way, today is the 10th of December, 2025. Thank you and goodbye for now.